Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So where we obviously just were and where you guys were on Sunday is the club room or the banquet hall. Club room is probably the one you'll hear it the most. That's kind of how we sell on the location on a BEO. But this, where you're standing in the tiled area, is our catering server station. So obviously the Meadow has their own in their clubhouse, and the Canyon dining and lunch servers have their own server station up there. We try to be pretty self-sufficient, so we're not having to go through the kitchen because it is a large kitchen, but it does fill up very quickly with prep. And we have a wedding going on here. There's 10 servers back here. You guys are doing a 200 on the books that night. It does get very crowded. So this is kind of our busing area. It's called a Queen Mary. It's where we fill all these up and then take them, just to kind of help with the foot traffic back there. And then as you kind of walk into this way, everything that's not a basic dinner plate or everyday item like silverware or water glass is probably back here. So all of like our front of the house serving utensils, all of our utensil platters, Fonzo ends up using these a lot for desserts. So there's just kind of an assortment of items back here. So if you know what you need and where it is, take the liberty to go and grab it. You don't need to come grab me or somebody in catering. But if you don't know what you're looking for, or you need help on where it may be or what the use is, then just ask. You're never going to get in trouble for that. There will be a master sheet posted that'll have the photo, the item, the location of it, and the usage and the reasons for it. So if you guys just want to walk through here, so tile is the server station. Once you walk through this door frame is the catering closet. The catering closet is our everyday usage for food stations. So, some of our Schaefers, our Dutch ovens, we keep wine boxes back here, kind of a small assortment of paper goods so we don't have to always go out back. Decor, greenery, we have heat lamps, just everyday items. But we also keep our clubroom chairs back here. The clubroom chairs will only live in here or the clubroom. The only time they will leave this room, sometimes on like a Saturday night, party wants to sit outside and they want a 10 top. Our tables and chairs fit a little better for 10 than the dining room. That's the only time though. They are very expensive and they are pretty fragile. But we have the dance floor, power strips and extension cords. The only thing that is really just catering specific, it's not shared by anyone else, is our water goblets. The Meadow and the Canyon use the exact same one. Ours are considerably bigger because for 120 people, that would just take a lot of watering and a lot of manpower. So, having a bigger glass, less time to water. And so we are going to head back out towards the kitchen area. We're going to kind of stop at those double-decker ovens. So Chef Fred obviously moved from the Meadow over to the Canyon as our new executive chef, and he has since, reorganized, restructured, and cleaned everything. You can see our floors are shiny. They just got regrouted, repolished, resealed. So, they're in the best condition they've been in a long time, but it's also our responsibility to help them maintain that way and not let them kind of revert back to our old ways. The only thing that are continuing to be added that are still not yet here is on each end of this prep table, there's going to be kind of a wooden booze block top table. A booze block is that wooden cutting board right there. It'll be on each end and there will be some storage underneath for like the plate warmer and stuff like that. But just some basic kitchen etiquette. If you do need to walk through the kitchen, please don't ever walk on this side, the hot side, if you would. This is where the ovens, the fryers and stuff. Please just walk on that side. But also just remember, during a wedding or, busy events in there, this is our expo line. We set up our trays right there. So there is no path back there. We can't just move the tray for you to walk back there. And we really can't have people going through the club room, especially during a wedding. We don't want to carry the Schaefer through someone's wedding. So if you do need something, just ask someone on that side or maybe just wait a few minutes. And then when you are walking on this side, using corner, behind, hot, whatever, that kind of etiquette that's appropriate. And then walk-in freezers. So if you've never worked in a restaurant, walk-in freezers do not have handles on the inside. Just push, you're not locked in. There's a sign that'll glow in the dark too if you do get shut in there. But the big thing is when you are walking out to, give it a quick, or, kick it twice or something like that, that lets the people know on this side that this door is about to fling open. and so just stop moving so they can walk out because they can't see you anyways. That's just a little basic etiquette. Back this way is Chef Fred's office. He's got him and Chef Matt will be in there. If the door's closed, it's probably for some reason, so just knock, don't ever just open the door. And then if you just want to come back a little further this way. I'm not going to go into too much detail because you guys will do this during your actual clubhouse onboarding, but just good reminders, dish pit etiquette. Obviously the Meadow, Leighton, their dishwasher is deaf, so it's very important to get visual acknowledgement from him before you set something hot down, or if you need something really quick, let him know. There will always be a bus tub here for silverware. Please don't ever put like a steak knife or a sharp knife in there. Butter knives are cool, all of that. There will be a smaller container for steak knives and stuff like that, so dishwashers don't cut themselves. And then with chef knives, what I would recommend, these are a chef knives, what they're using to prep. 80% of the chefs have their own personal knives. They have their own knife pack. That's their tool set. They're very particular. I would probably just suggest don't touch a chef's knife. If you do though, there will probably be a container right here for these knives, so they can soak here and then they can be washed separately. But if they ever get ran through the dish pit, they lose their sharpness, the blade starts to wear and tear. But for the most part, the chefs are going to take care of their own knives. They've spent a good amount on them anyways. Back down this hallway a little bit. So we have just a few little things. So 2 more walk-in coolers. So same thing applies, especially in this hallway, because this is where the vendors and the suppliers come. So they're familiar with what that means too. And then back in this area right here is the dry storage. So some of our food and dry good products. A lot of our pastry stuff. So flour and sugars back there. Everyday paper goods, some of the bags and stuff, condiments, just dry product. And then right out this hallway, we are going to go outside because this group is recording, so sorry.
In the snow.
Yeah. So just real quickly right here, this is the back dock hallway. The only real things you need to remember about are these 3 racks. Obviously your chemical rack, cleaning supplies, sanitizer, that kind of stuff. This middle one is probably the most important. It's our linen rack. We partner with Mission Linen, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But anything colored, one solid color, we don't do any stripes or dots or anything with them. They will be on this rack. For the most part, if you're not in catering, you really shouldn't need to grab from this rack because all of your guys' linens and serviettes will be on this shelf. You'll see it, there will be 10 bags of these. It's your bread folds, your wine serviettes, anything, your roll-ups. That is what for dinner, and then the Meadow just has a different colorway, but same exact design. If you do need to take, a linen every once in a while, that's okay. Please just either ask or let us know if you take the last one or there's only one left, because we sell events based off of this. So we can get linens very quickly, but we can't get them on the same day. So we usually need a little bit of time. So we can get linens quick, but they're not at the ready. So that part is important. We do have one walk-in freezer right here on the left side of this hallway. And then as you go down that ramp, there is one more freestanding walk-in freezer. Really the only few things to know about the back dock, I know it's snowing out, but there are 4 bleaker boxes. They are all numbered, and it has the sign of what's inside of it. So, kitchen equipment, table bleaker box. The big one out there is number 3. That's our paper goods. That's by far the hardest one to keep organized. It doesn't necessarily, it can't hold all of the product that we need, but that's why it's very important to keep it organized. And, the expos, our chef Ricky kind of prioritize that. But if we need something or you take the last sleeve of cups, please let us know. We can get them very quickly, but, we need cups. So if you take the last one, please say something. And then also right by those bleaker boxes, which is at the base of the smokers area, are these ginormous blue tubs. They're probably about 6 feet tall and about this width, and that's what those Mission Linen bags, once they're full, go into. Those Mission Linen bags are those blue and white striped ones. I'll show you once we go back into the club room. Once they're full, you just throw them right in the bin, and when Mission Linen comes to do their next delivery, they just change them out for an empty one. And then same thing applies with these runners. They are also Mission Linen. They can go in the same tub. We'll try and reuse them every 2-3 days. But once they're dirty, we just throw them in the tub and we just get reimbursed and we get them replaced. Any of those Mission linens and those dinner serviettes all come from Mission, so they can all go in the same blue and white striped bag. There are a few linens that I'll show you once we go into the clubroom that can't go in those bags, but we'll talk about that in a second.
They would end up looking out their favorite table every Friday, every Saturday.
All right, so this is our kind of our specialty linen, haberdashery, cabinetry, whatever. These are all the linens that we own, we purchased, we wash in-house. If these ever end up in a Mission linen bag, we're not going to get them back. Linens are very, very expensive, so it's really important that we don't make that mistake and put them in the Mission linen bag. For the most part, just Karen and myself will probably be accessing this because one, we just know what linens fit what tables, the color schemes we have, what events it'll work for. But at the end of the event, when you guys are breaking down, you'll be throwing linens away. If you're not sure if it's a Mission linen or a specialty, just err on the side that it's a specialty linen. And all specialty linens, once they've been used, just go in me and Karen's office. All the managers share the same office. You just throw it under one of our desks, and that just lets us know we need to clean them. And if a Mission linen ends up in that pile, we're never going to say anything. We'll just throw it away the next day. There will never be a problem. We would honestly kind of prefer it, knowing that you at least thought, hey, is it specialty? Is it Mission? And then I think the last thing with that is if, obviously these linens are for our food station, so there's a lot of food and, debris and stuff that ends up on these linens. If ever something big like a red wine stain or like an au jus stain, let me know right away so I can get it in the washer. Because if I come back in 2 days, after our days off, they might have already set, and then either the linen's ruined or we have to send it into dry cleaning, and then it's just more of an expense. Housekeeping helps out a lot with our linens, but they can't clean linens unless they know it's dirty. So if something's dirty, or if there's a rip, sometimes we've had sternos fall over and make burn holes. Just make us aware. We can replace things, but linens are, the hardest thing to keep clean and keep track of. They are organized based off of kind of their usage. It's hard because, a pink linen can be used for Valentine's, it can be used for Easter, it can be used for Mother's Day, so it's kind of hard to do exactly what it's used for. But we do kind of have a small system in there to kind of just have is it an 8-foot, is it a big runner, is it, what is it? So, but for the most part, this is where all the specialty linens live. But yeah, just please don't ever throw any specialty linens away. If you don't know, just think it's a Mission. All right, we will go back to the equipment table. So you guys can just take a seat now.
Okay. Just do want me?
Yeah, you can still, you can just set it down. So with the catering equipment, I know not all of this is applicable to your guys' positions, but for a barbecue, it's all hands on deck, so it's good to just have some base knowledge of what these items are and the reasons we use them. Obviously there's, the basics like chafers, which are for your everyday, banquets and food stations, but we try to do a little more open food displays because our chefs spend a lot of time making a really nice dish and putting a presentation on it, and then if we just kind of put it in a steel box, it kind of takes away from their hard work. So we try and do open food displays. It is tricky because we are in a pine forest, so bugs and gnats and stuff, so there is a health factor to it, but we can manage that. So we're trying to get into a little more stuff like Dutch ovens, stuff where we can just pop the lid off and put it on a holder. Still holds it fine, keeps it up to health code, within those 4 hours, stuff like that. The other kind of big things with our equipment is, the Meadow has their own equipment too. They have it in a little smaller of a capacity because they don't have as much storage and they just don't have as much need for it. But with that, it is everyone's equipment. I know a lot of stuff kind of gets deemed responsible for catering because we use it every day. We know how to store it, what it's used for, but it all comes from the same member dues. They all paid for it, so it's for everyone. I know we utilize it the most, but with that, a good example is on Sundays. The Meadow will be doing a breakfast at 7 a.m. and they'll need to borrow 4 shavers, and we'll have a wedding on Saturday night. If we don't clean those water pans and wipe the lids down, they're starting their next shift at 6 a.m. with 4 dirty shavers, and it's just a bad look. Catering's opening and closing work is a little different from like a basic restaurant. It's not rolling silverware, polishing glasses, resetting tables. It's wiping the equipment down, restoring it, getting it ready for the next event, room flipping, that kind of stuff. So it is different, but our closing work is still very important. The big thing is when it gets back into the closet, it should be ready to use. It should be put away, clean, washed, wiped down, whatever it needs to happen. So when you grab it the next morning or the next day, it's ready. You don't have to spend an extra 5 minutes cleaning or doing any of that. The other thing, so I kind of mentioned this. These are just catering specific. So if you ever see these floating around, just bring them back into the catering area. You can either put them back in the rack or just kind of lay them on the service station area. But just some of the basic names. So obviously, like heat lamps and chafers are pretty well known. But we have some unique names, like this is called a dancing man just because it's welded dancing man on the side. It's just a flat top. It's a welded flat top. We'll do bottom heat for these sternos and then also top heat with heat lamps, just to make sure we're keeping it up to temperature while it's outside. Dutch ovens are going to be really big this year, so there will be some growing pains because this will be kind of the first year we'll implement them. But same, keeping a Dutch oven clean is pretty difficult, but it's important. And then I think the last thing is just also understanding how much things cost. There's probably $10,000 worth of stuff right here. Banquet and catering items are not very cheap. Heat lamps are $700. Chafers are almost $1,000. The bread case was $500. But with that, we have the funds and the money to buy the top of the line stuff. But it's only as good as how we keep it. We're not going to skimp out on a really cheap chafer or anything like that. We're going to get the nice wooden finish and stuff like that. But if we break it in 2 weeks, that's just wasted money. We have money to repair things and replace them, but it's not a bottomless pit. So it's really important that if something does break, I totally get accidents happen. I've broken plenty of stuff. You're never going to get in trouble. You're never going to get billed for it or anything like that. The only time it will become a problem is if you don't say anything. If you break a chafer lid and you wait 4 or 5 days to tell me the day of I need a chafer, then it's an issue. We could have probably already replaced it 4 days ago and got the order in, but now we're wasting 2 events where we don't have a chafer. So it's just important to communicate if you break something, if something is broken or it's loose or something needs to get fixed. Just tell us, whether you did it or not. It's important to just uphold the equipment and keep it in the best condition. And then I think kind of the last thing is understanding how and what we can clean of our catering equipment. A lot of the stuff can't go directly through the dish pit. So the chafers, for example, taking the water pan out, running that and the lid through the dish pit, and then wiping the actual external base of it. That's how we can keep it clean. The minnows are a hard one because they don't fit in the dish pit. The dishwashers are responsible for cleaning the equipment, but at 9 p.m. at the end of a wedding, at the end of dinner service, when their entire dish pit is full, they don't really have space for that, so that's when it's our job to kind of help them out and kind of maybe pre-clean it so they don't have to do as much. And then also knowing what goes into what. So for like example, these saw shakers are a few $100s, and if we lose the water pan, the rest is irrelevant. So keeping things together as you found them, that's kind of a good rule of thumb, is putting it back how you found it and where you found it. Whether it was in the right spot to begin with, you can at least say, this is where I found it. Our catering staff will help if you just need direction on where things go, or if you just need to pass it off to them real quick. But this little prep area is not a catch-all. It's a little more for our dishwashers. They just drop it there and have us put it away. It is your responsibility if you're using the equipment or the items or the tongs to put them away. We have all of 4 feet for table space, so prepping butters, bussing, that is our only table space. So if it's full with a chafer, someone didn't put it away, that really hinders our service. And it's just the same as we want to go and put something on the expo line or at the Meadow,
just throw it right on the bar top, put it away where you found it. Do you guys have any questions?